Welcome you guys to the Wholehearted podcast. Chase and I are really excited today because we're doing something new, and this is our very first episode bringing on a guest. Our goal is to start bringing on guests of people that we really look up to, that we think are embodying the principles of wholehearted living, and we have picked one of my favorite people in the whole world as our first guest, and we feel so grateful to have him here with us. We have Dave Force here with us. He is the co-founder and CEO of Radix Solar Solutions. He is an amazing leader in the business world, and one of the things that makes him an amazing leader is because of why he does what he does, and I'm going to let him explain that later. But he is also a man who believes in the humanitarian efforts. He's done everything from building schools in India to battling sex trafficking and everything in between. He's got some amazing stories. He's got some amazing experience. On the home front, he is the consummate family man. He's married to his wife Hillary and has 4 children. That's right?
That's correct, yep.
Yep, with the newer additions, and he is also involved in his church leadership. So there pretty much isn't anything that Dave doesn't do. He is truly a man after his own name. He is a force for good. So, Dave,
Thanks, Tyler.
we're glad to have you
With that introduction, that's it's a lot to live up to right there.
you just being yourself already lives up to it.
Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate that. And yeah, saying all that, I'm like, you immediately feel like, yeah, I'm busy. But one of my favorite things that I tell people is, if you want something done, give it to a busy man.
Yeah,
So,
that's right, because they know how to get things done. River, no. Calm down. So, sorry, we've got our puppy here. She's still running around. We've got River in the act. She'll be in and out, but
which is great. I just barely got a puppy last week.
yeah.
My wife and I, for years, have told our kids no. They come to us every Christmas like, we don't care. We don't want anything for Christmas, just a puppy. And we just keep saying no. And with my job and how much I travel and everything else, it was just no. And then, my wife, actually my 11-year-old, she just is so great at unconditional love, and she needs that also in her own life. And we're like, you know what? Like, this is the thing that's going to make us break, because we just know a dog feels that role. And
it does.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, we're going to do it. And then the timing of it was just perfect. It was right about the time that the kids found out that they weren't going to school for the next few weeks. And so it's been fun to have the puppy there when the kids are around, and it's been a good experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of dogs. I even shot that one podcast episode that I said every man should have a dog, and now you've got one.
Yeah.
It's under the guise of the kids. You'll come to love that dog. So.
For sure, yeah. And I grew up with a dog, so I secretly have wanted one the whole time. So works out for me.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, one of the things that I think I wanted to get you to speak to today a little bit and maybe ask some questions about was, I don't know if you remember having a conversation, it was probably a couple of years ago, where you were telling me about your why. We were talking about the whole Simon Sinek concept of what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And you told me something, I don't remember what you told me. And I wanted to just ask you what your why is, for why you do what you do with your company, with your humanitarian efforts. What is your personal why, and how did you come to that conviction inside of yourself?
Yeah, good question. And my why within my own life is different than my why within work. And so I think I'd probably separate those two a little bit. But within my work, the why became really clear to me a few years ago, and I could really break it into 3 different parts. The first one is I work in a sales industry that's very, at times, cutthroat and competitive. And so my first part of my why was to try and change the industry that I work in, to increase the culture of kindness that exists within that space. And that's been a really challenging, motivating goal, and it's something that's required a lot of focus and getting a lot of people involved to really try and make an impact or a dent in how that works. The second part of it is to get everyone on a path of, we say Kaizen. Kaizen's a Japanese business term that just means incremental and constant improvement.
I love it.
And so just trying to get everyone that we surround ourselves with on a path of improvement in some way. And then the last one is more financially driven. It was just, you get to a point, you never get to a point of arrival, but you get to certain places in your life where you're like, hey, I've made it this far. What can I do to turn around and help the next person along to get to that spot? And as part of that, my why was to help my friends and the people that I work with to create wealth in their life, which wealth is a very vast word. It has a lot of different meaning to it, but there also is the financial aspect of wealth and trying to help people create that in their lives. So those are the three things that I'd kind of outlined as my why within work. Those goals put a lot of pressure on me to perform. In my own life, my why is much more simple. It's just to show up, right?
I love it.
Whether I'm at church, whether I'm with my family, whether I'm at work, to just show up. And I'm definitely not saying that I do that all the time.
Right.
But that's the goal, right? Just to show up.
Be present. Offer yourself.
Yeah, be there in my daughter's life. Be there in my wife's life. Be there within my community, within my church, and to just show up.
Awesome.
So
those are awesome.
I try and keep it really simple when it comes to my own why within my own outside of work. That way I don't bury myself.
I think it sounds simple, but the process of actually trying to actually show up and be engaged takes an intense amount of work and a lot of commitment to be able to continue to do that. I'm wondering, I love that term you used, Kaizen, and how you explain that. How do you go about in what you do, which is basically being a leader in a big company with a lot of people that you're responsible for, that you're trying to change a whole culture in an industry that traditionally hasn't operated the way you're trying to do that? What kinds of things do you do to help foster that sense of Kaizen with the people that you're teaching and training and working with?
A couple things we're doing right now. We actually just launched a month-long, we're calling it an Ascent Academy. Ascent kind of fits in with Kaizen, but where we are practicing social distancing, it's an online weekly thing for our company where we're jumping on, and each week we're studying different principles. We have a book. The book we're doing is Mindset, but we're all studying a book along the same time. So right now it's kind of unique what we're doing, because I feel like we almost are living in a different world than we were a couple weeks ago. Totally. But there's always something like that going on that we're working on, that's kind of helping us progress and helping us be on that path of Kaizen. Talking kind of bigger picture here for a minute, the way that I look at business, and when you're an entrepreneur, you're really breathing life into something, you're really creating something. And initially when you're trying to create that business, so we're talking like day one of a business, okay, what is this business going to look like? The way that I see that is, okay, let's establish the vision. And something that a mentor taught me early on in business was that vision needs to be big enough that it can embody the amount of people that you want to include into that vision, right? It's got to be big enough there. And then you got to establish the principles that are going to drive you towards that vision. So if you imagine the vision as like the end destination that you're trying to get with a group of people, then take your principles, and that's going to be the vehicle that you all got in together that are going to drive you there to that vision. So for us as a business, we when we started Radix, we said, okay, what are the principles that are going to drive us? And one of them was become, which is that process of self-improvement. And so we do a lot of things around that Kaizen, become, principle mindset of establishing this is our culture. This is what's going to drive us to where we're heading.
I love that. I love it. Another thing that I've known that you've done in the past, and I think you're still involved with, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe you were going to be a part of speaking at an upcoming conference that may or may not happen now, I'm guessing, with Operation Underground Railroad and things. But in the past, I've been fascinated that part of your culture has been deciding on some type of a humanitarian effort and then pulling in the people that you work with to help contribute not just their financial resources but their time and their energy, which I think is sometimes even more valuable to stay downriver.
Yeah, for sure. I think most of us like want to do good. Like we have this feeling of like, hey, we want to figure out a way that we can make an impact for better. At least I hope so. And what I didn't realize about that is that takes a lot of work. It's not just getting something that you believe in, it's also a process of getting other people to believe in it the same way that you believe in it. But yeah, every year we try and find something, and some things that we've done, we've had failure with, and we haven't had a lot of success, or we've had very low buy-in, and it's been hard to really get people to be as passionate as I am or as the people I'm working with are to get everybody excited about it.
So actually, with that, have you had any success with getting people on board? Like,
yeah.
What does that look like?
And so that's I guess I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit, because one year we had a local principal that we were helping out. This guy just embodies passion and belief, and he a huge mentor and example to me. But he established a legacy scholarship fund that was going towards underprivileged kids that he was trying to fund, and our salespeople just bought into it like crazy. Like we were able to raise a lot of money. Guys were really involved locally in helping do it. And then there have been other years where we've had a charity or something that we were driving towards, and we just didn't get the same level of buy-in. So what we're doing right now with Malou Foundation and Underground Railroad, one of the things that we really liked about it is the financial aspect of donating usually comes after somebody really believes in whatever the cause is. Passion. Yeah, it's got to be something they believe in. So when we first hire somebody at our company, we have them from day one become what we call On Watch certified, which basically just is a 30-minute training program that it's free, anybody can do it, any company can do it. But from day one of someone saying, hey, we're going to go work with these guys, part of their onboarding, when they're filling out their tax form and their application sheet, they have to go fill out this online form or go do this online course that teaches them the signs of what to look for with sex trafficking. And we had this guy, the reason that we had the idea to do this with Malou Foundation and On Watch is we had this guy a couple years ago that was out in a neighborhood selling, and he had taken this course with the fire department on what to look for meth. Uh-huh. And he gets into this customer's home, and he was selling them a security system for their house, and he's like, well, there's this area in my garage that I want to protect. So they take him out into the garage, and the customer actually ends up leaving for a minute, and he starts looking around in this garage, and because he had seen this video and this training, he was aware, right? Yeah. And he starts to see these signs and realizes and starts taking some pictures on his phone that he's standing in the middle of a meth lab. So because of the nature of our work, he was in the home, he had pictures on his phone, he had all the customers' information. Yeah. So he ends up showing up to the police department. The police was like, yeah, that probably wasn't, well, let me show you some pictures. And then the officer, well, do you have any information about the customer? Well, yeah, actually I have.
He filled out this form.
Yeah, he filled out this form. So they're able to the next day go do this fairly large bust. And so light bulb for me, right, goes off, and I'm like, all right, if we can go teach this sales force what to look for, what the signs are, when you have a few 100,000 cases in the U.S. alone, and I'm literally working in a space where our people span across the entire U.S. and they're in communities, stopping at gas stations, the different places where these kind of activities happen. What is the likelihood that if everyone knows what they're looking for, that they'll come across something and be able to make a significant difference, even if it's for one person?
One person.
Right.
Wow. That is awesome, Dave. What a great idea, especially in the industry that you're in, where you literally have people with boots on the ground everywhere. in people's homes individually, which is where a lot of people don't ever get to see what's behind that open door, that front door, you know, and that's pretty awesome.
Sex trafficking is in some ways a tough conversation to talk about. I mean, as I've jumped into it and started to donate to it and be involved in fighting against it, I've realized how hard it is. Like, to go talk to my 14-year-old about what this is, right? Yeah. But even as we talk about it more, and as people understand it, as our salespeople understand it, there's just all these little things that through this training you start to pick up on that you can watch for. One thing that I thought about is, one of the things that said, if you're inside a home and there's no door handle on one of the doors, right, it could be a sign, right? And just something that small, if someone's in the house and they pick up on it, like, why is there no door handle on one side of the door? It could be something that sets off. And then it teaches you exactly what to do, what to call, who to call, how to get help and support to help rescue somebody.
What an awesome cause to be involved in, you know, Dave. And I think it's a really important cause that a lot of people don't have the stomach for, because they don't want to actually acknowledge that this is really happening in our own communities. It's happening, you know, everywhere, and it's such a painful, heavy subject that there's not a lot of people that want to be on the front lines with that. And the way that you're going about doing that, I think, is an incredible thing.
We're excited about it. We're actually looking at 2 different causes within it right now. One is to help fund a local sting operation here in Utah. A couple of years ago, the group we're working with funded a sting operation. So what that looks like is you're paying for the Airbnb that the people are staying in. Maybe it's down the road from the operation where it's at, right? Or you're paying for the cameras that they need to do the surveillance in order to make the arrests. And then there's another one we're looking at right now for this summer to fund, which is a school in Ghana that basically takes in the people that they rescue and helps rehabilitate them. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get involved and just make whatever impact and make whatever difference we can.
Awesome. Helping on both ends of that too, because that's another thing with those kids, especially the kids that find themselves stuck in this slavery. The aftermath of trying to heal is such an intense, like, long, hard process.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to be involved in both sides of that.
Definitely something that I'm just super passionate about. A few years ago, I just fell in love with Abraham Lincoln, and I find myself like reading every book, listening to every audio thing that I can about him, and it got to the point where I became so obsessed about it that I named my last son Lincoln. Yeah, but he's the great abolitionist. He freed people from slavery and did a lot of other things as well. But it's something that I'm very bought into and excited to do some good.
Awesome.
I think what's amazing to me, Dave, is how you have infused this into your business instead of it. There's lots of businesses that don't do this kind of thing, I'm sure. They're focused more on, is this money actually going to come back and benefit us or in our growth? But for you to care that much, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Thanks, Jason. That's like highlighting it. One of my friends who I've known for a long time is like, made a joke at me the other day because he was like, well, I'm going to donate to whatever cause Dave's involved in right now. I was like, fine, yeah, call it what it is. But yeah, I'm going to be involved in something and I'm going to go try and make a difference. Why not? Yeah, we're going to be working anyway, so might as well try and do some good along the way.
I love it, man.
Something I've been kind of curious about, a little bit about some of the adventures that you've gone on and things that you've done personally. So were you, and maybe in some of the things that you've done with these charities and other organizations, have you been able to go to any of these other countries or spend time in these other places? What are some adventures that you're like, man, I'm so grateful I got to do that?
Yeah. Last year we were doing a donation drive to go help some schools in India, And the way it worked for our people, our salespeople, is whatever accounts they donated, we would match. And then once they hit a certain amount of accounts that they had donated, then they went on this trip to go over and help with these schools. And I was able to go on that trip as well. And there were a couple ways I could do that. I could obviously just pay and go, but I'm like, no, I'm expecting the sales reps to go sell and donate so many accounts. So I'm going to do this the hard way. So I went out, sold the accounts, and did it the right way. And ended up going over to India, and what a phenomenal experience. It was an adventure. So day one, they want to do, this group we were working with, they're like, day one, we want you to just dive into the culture of this country. And so, because that's what they were emotionally trying to get you to do, they physically had you do it. So what that looked like was, you showed up in India, you got there, checked into your hotel, and then you immediately went over on these buses and got close to Old Delhi, right? But once you're outside of Old Delhi, they dropped you off and put you in what they call a tuk-tuk, which is like this little guy on a bike, and you're behind it. So pretty soon you're in this little tuk-tuk, and you're like heading through cars, traffic, people, buses coming at you, like, and you're literally diving into the heart of the city in this tuk-tuk. And you're going into this old spice market in Old Town Delhi, and so you're kind of diving into the culture of the city, and it really was quite the experience. But yeah, it was an adventure, and the good we were able to do there was why we were there. And we did different things different days, but one of the days we spent some times there in the slums, and went to different families that had agreed to let us come into their homes and try and help them. And that day alone, just, you talk about perspective broadening, and what you're, the things that we all take for granted, and really putting in. I came home and like wanted to take away like half of my kids' stuff, but it was really cool. It was really cool to be there and have that experience. And I'm hoping with this charity we're looking at now that I'll get a chance to go over to Ghana and do that. But more adventures to come, hopefully.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So Dave, just a minute before we started actually filming, we were talking about the challenges that are going on in our world right now, and how that potentially affects your business. And you said you're kind of in a 5-week shutdown right now because of the Corona thing.
Yeah.
How do you, being someone who is basically responsible for not only your own well-being but the well-being of so many other people, how do you maintain a sense of optimism and confidence when you're looking at a challenge like the one you're facing right now, and how do you overcome those kinds of challenges, because you obviously have those on a daily basis when you're trying to start a business?
Yeah, I don't actually think I know the answer to that question yet, but I do know this. I know that 3 years from now, I believe that the way that business owners and businesses navigate through what's going on right now, I mean, this is a historical event it's a pandemic. I mean, it's something that I think 3 years from now, when you look at any leadership deck, book, podcast, I think most of them will be about how people got through this, how they survived it. Right now, what that feels like is, it feels like waking up early in the morning, working till 8 or 9 o'clock at night some days, feeling like I got punched 100 times that day, and just kept my chin up, right? And then got to the end of the day and wanted to just go lay on my living room carpet and cry, but instead like needed to go connect with my kids. So that's what it feels like right now.
In some ways, on a much smaller scale, I feel the same things, and I'm wondering, like, so how do you not go lay on the carpet and cry and connect with your kids when that's the kind of day that you've had?
Yeah, and you just do it. You show up, right? You show up. So, and that's been it. And every day has been a new challenge through this thing. I kept because I kept telling myself, which I'm sure kind of a lot of people are out there doing the same thing. It's like, well, it's not going to get to this point, and then okay, we're here. maybe you'll get to the next one too. But yeah, we're on a full shutdown right now, and we're just working through it the best we can. And in some ways, like, we're prepared for it, and in other ways we're not. And maybe ask me that question again in a couple months. I'll let you know how we did it.
Yeah, well, I definitely plan on connecting with you and Stan, and hopefully having you back again on the podcast if we actually get this thing rolling the way we want it to as well. So I know it's really cold out here. Maybe just, and I don't know, Chase, if you have any other questions, but maybe a couple more questions, and then
I'm great.
Before our lips stop moving totally.
I love it. It's beautiful out here.
Now the sun's up, it's a lot more bearable too. Yeah.
The sun coming up over the ridge there, but. Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Chase?
You know, I feel really edified, Dave. So thank you for the things that you've already shared. I mean, it's been really uplifting for me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else to go through with you, but I don't know if there are any other questions.
I think you've done plenty today, Dave. Like, really, I was telling Chase when he didn't tell me that he had reached out to you first, and when he told me, and I thought, man, like, that is the perfect guest to have on. And you're somebody who I've always respected and looked up to. And I told Chase, I said, Dave's the kind of guy that I never had the courage to approach, but I wanted to approach about just seeing if I could hire him as a consultant in my own life. And so to be here and to kind of get a little bit of an extra flavor with you and to hear some of your stories and to just kind of, I hope that people can feel through the camera the heart that you exude and the passion that you have in the way that you live your life and the things that you're trying to do. Maybe just one last thing for you to think about, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a tiny bit here because I didn't prep you with this question, but when you think about the principles of what it means to be wholehearted, what does it mean to you to be wholehearted?
I guess I'll try and answer that. To me, it means to not go through the motions. This is probably getting a little more raw, but I just feel like one of Satan's greatest tools is to try and get us to just be going through the motion in our lives. Get trapped into a routine and just kind of be going along with the flow. Kind of a random story, but one day I kind of felt, or not one day, for a few weeks I kind of started feeling that way, and had the chance with work to go up with some guys and go snowmobiling. And I was up snowmobiling up Logan Canyon, and some guys were down here on the base, and I was kind of up on this hillside, and I'm just up there just screaming like, ah! I wasn't even doing anything that crazy, but just felt fun. Yeah, just like a little bit scared, but like also just screaming, and like come back down the hill, and this guy's like, snowmobiles are loud. He's like, was that you screaming? I'm like, yeah, that was me screaming. That was awesome. And that's, I don't know, it like shook me out of it, right? Shook me out of just going through the motion, and it really does, I guess, kind of come back to that showing up again. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying, and I think that's the key. I think we put all this pressure on ourselves to be perfect or do things perfect, and a lot of times it's like I mentioned my 11-year-old earlier, and trying to help her. It's not saying the exact right thing or knowing the right thing to say. It's just showing up. Sometimes it's not saying anything at all. It's just being there. And that's what I'm trying to do in my own life, is just to show up. And I think that is living wholehearted. If I can show up and be present, that's what it means to me. And it's interesting to have you ask me that question, Tyler, because I feel like you're phenomenal at it. So it's a little awkward trying to answer that, but yeah, that's how I look at it in my own life.
Well, so while you were talking, I kept thinking like, well, how did you get to this point, Dave? Because people aren't born just like, I'm a wholehearted man, here we go, I'm living life to the fullest. Yeah. Like, what had been some of the turning points for you? Maybe some of the hardships, some of the breakthroughs, like what got you here?
Yeah, I've always had a natural disposition for discipline, and I'm a fairly disciplined individual. Everyone will set goals every year. I have the different areas of my life. I set them, I track them. I'm like constantly, like, I know where I'm at throughout the year. I'll go look at them quite often and kind of see where I'm at. But I think that's part of that, progression and trying to become something better that you're talking about. I mean, when I first met Tyler, I feel like I was actually at a point where I was fairly broken. Like preparing for this conversation, I was kind of looking back through that time in my life and some of the things that I'd written down, and there was this moment where I just had our third kid, my first son. His name's Maverick, and he's just a little baby, and I'm like, he can't talk, right? He doesn't know what I'm saying, but it's late at night, he's awake at night, and I'm up in his room just holding him, and I'm just crying, and I had written down like that after that moment that I just made a commitment to live more wholehearted for him. And it's for him, it's for my other kids, for my wife, and ultimately for my God and for myself. And I, just trying to do the best I can with it.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much for your willingness to come and share here. I think we could probably, again, I'm hoping to have you on again in the future. We could probably get into all sorts of different topics. We've barely even touched relationship with God, which I think would be fascinating to hear some of your journey there as well. But just really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been fun.
You're the man, dude.
Yeah, it's been good to see you guys.